Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of AWS Show and Tell. This week, we've got an exciting topic for you guys. We've always got an exciting topic, but this is a particularly exciting topic. We're going to dig into a piece of technology I've been waiting for an excuse to dig into since New York Summit. That is Bedrock AgentCore. Specifically, we're going to take a look at that AgentCore gateway. And we've got two incredible guests with us today that are going to take us on our AgentCore gateway and MCP journey. Gentlemen, why don't you go ahead and say hello to the chat, introduce yourself, and maybe let folks know where you're joining us from in the world today.
Yeah, I'll go first. First of all, thank you very much. I'm super excited about this session. Dhawal Patel here. I'm the principal generative AI architect at AWS, and I'm one of the founding members, solution architects, launching the AgentCore. And I am a builder at heart. I like to do stuff and show, and that's exactly what I want to do here in this session using AgentCore Gateway. Nick.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Nick Aldridge. I'm one of the principal engineers here at AWS. I work on our agentic AI offerings like AgentCore and AgentCore Gateway. I'm also representing AWS on the MCP and A2A steering committees. So for those of you that are deep in the protocols, happy to discuss about that. And very excited to join you today to talk more about AgentCore Gateway.
Very, very important business there. A2A and MCP. In fact, I'm running a fun fact an MCP workshop with my customer tomorrow, and it is pretty much ever since that got velocity. It's it's interestingly. I thought MCP was going to be for advanced customers, but it's actually the first step for many customers that are getting started.
It's the hot topic, right? Everyone wants to talk about MCP and A2A. I feel like that's the big thing right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you both for joining us. Very excited for the topic today. I'm hosting you all from the great state of Maine, the woods, the middle of nowhere. It's a wonderful spot. And for those folks who are joining us in the chat, let us know where you're coming in from. We'll throw your comment up on the screen, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to know you all are here with us watching live. Before we get into some slides and some demo and all that good stuff, what should folks expect out of the next hour or so?
Yeah, I think
that's to you, Dhawal, or you too, Nick. Sure, either of you, go for it.
Dhawal, go ahead.
Go for it, Nick.
No, I think we're going to dive deep into Gateway. We want to tell you a bit about this amazing product, talk a little bit about the protocols as well. I always love to talk about the protocols, and then do a demo as well. So, I think it's going to be a good session.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to dive deep into what customers are looking for developing agentic applications and how agents can scale when it comes to calling tools, and tools are extremely important for agents to work, right? And we want to talk about how to scale the tools using AgentCore Gateway. I'm going to dive deeper into how AgentCore Gateway works internally. We are going to dive deep into the code. We're going to show the demo.
Wow.
Lots of good stuff.
Action-packed session today. Great for folks that want to learn the basics and then jump right in to my favorite way of learning, which is to get hands-on and start deploying it and configuring it myself. So we've got folks starting to chime in the chat, folks joining us from around the globe. Love to see it every week. We're here every Tuesday, folks. If you'd like to join us next week, we got more AgentCore coming right at you. But I guess let's go ahead and get started with the reason folks are here. AgentCore Gateway. Okay, I've heard of gateways before. I've heard of API gateways. There's a lot of gateways out there in the world. We got another gateway. I'm eager to learn here.
You got lots of gateways. I hear you, Trevor, and that's exactly why we are here to explain here. So, all right, so let's get started. Let's dive in. So we're going to talk about AgentCore Gateway. So first, a little bit of a step back. And let's understand what a typical agentic AI applications look like. What are the components of developing agentic applications, right? So you need if you're building an agentic application, obviously you need an agentic framework like LangChain, LangGraph, Strands. We have, by the way, open source Strands. We'd love you folks to use Strands. And then all that great orchestration and kind of a reasoning, like a brain of the agentic system, right, is powered by LLMs, right? A state-of-the-art LLMs. And we have Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock has lots of state-of-the-art LLMs to power the agents. One other very important component of the agent is tools, right? The agent needs to have access to the tools, the APIs, the logic that agents are going to use in order to orchestrate the workflows and answer the user questions. And kind of, it's a power engine, right? And it's exactly what we are going to dive into, that the agent to tool interaction. And we talk about the tools, like we talk about like, hey, there are like M number of agents, and those agents needs N number of tools. So we are talking about M cross N permutation combinations, and we need some kind of a standard framework, standard protocol to reduce that M cross N. And that's where the protocols like MCP comes into the play, where Nick comes into the play, and Nick also is helping out a lot of great stuff with the MCP specification. While we have the MCP specification, where an agentic application has access to tools, right? And then when we talk about scaling that from one tool to like maybe 3 tools and then in an N number of tools, right? Like that's great. Like agent needs to call 20s or hundreds of maybe thousands of tools. And then if you talk about scale, like there are multiple agents trying to call multiple tools. And that's where we want to optimize that using the protocols like MCP, where, hey, there's somebody else who has already developed a tool for achieving certain stuff like search internet, for example, or a tool for getting the weather, or a tool for getting the time. Like somebody out there has already developed the tool. Why not reuse those tools using MCP protocol or using some kind of standard protocol so that these agents can discover these tools and call these tools in a standard format to kind of scale, right? So that's why we have protocols like MCP, right? That standardizes the interface of the agent to tool interactions. But then that's not enough. The protocols are great, but what our customers are asking for, like, hey, I have these MCP tools that I need to develop, and it takes a village to develop an MCP tool. It takes a lot of, like, you need to develop an MCP server, you need to import the libraries, you need to host.
What do you mean? What do you mean it takes a village? I just vibe coded 5 MCP servers before my first call this morning. Is that what you mean? Or I think you mean a production, like agentic MCP server, right?
Exactly.
Although I like the mental model of villages of people maintaining all.
I love that comment, Trevor, because like that is even the attitude of a lot of businesses is like, hey, we already have 100 MCP servers live, and like going from that to production and maintaining over time is actually a hard thing. And maybe just taking a step back, right? AgentCore itself, AgentCore is a lot of different products, right? As part of that umbrella of AgentCore. And I think the key philosophy behind AgentCore is really this thing of like, we want to make sure that all of the undifferentiated heavy lifting that you do as a business is stuff that we manage so that you focus on building your application level code, right? And so Gateway is a perfect example of like, we're going to do all the stuff around maintaining compliance with MCP versions and patching and security and Doel's going to talk about, a bunch of these features, but at a high level, it's really about making sure that you can build faster, that you can build more reliably, without having to take account of all of these sort of low-level nitty-gritties. Honestly, I think there will become a near future where we think of MCP like we think of TCP and UDP, right? Where no one thinks about it. It just works because there are great products like Gateway that just do that thing and speak that protocol.
Yeah, well, great call out, Trevor, and thanks for interrupting. Thanks for interrupting me. But
I'm always ready for a vibe coding joke. Always ready.
Yes.
By the way, we've already got some great questions coming in from the chat.
Okay.
I'm gonna pop them up as they're coming in. I'm sure we'll get to this, but it's so essential to like what it's here for. Can we connect local and remote agents to this gateway? Like exactly like what could connect to this AgentCore gateway on the front end?
Yeah. So For now, the gateway supports the remote MCP servers, MCP tools using streamable HTTP. If folks are aware of MCP protocol, then there are like different types of connections, like streamable HTTP and then streaming response as using SSE. And there's like stateless connections and stateful connections. So right now, AgentCore Gateway supports remote MCP tools using streamable HTTP, and particularly it is stateless remote streamable HTTP connection. Nick, if you want to add anything else.
That's right. Yeah, I think we're excited about MCP, excited about all the features today. That's what it supports.
Yeah. So going back to my production, like it does take a lot to develop and deploy production grade tools, right? And I'm emphasizing the word production grade. And when I say production grade, like all of that cool stuff, like, hey, let me start building the MCP server, let me import the libraries, and then let me also build a server that understands JSON RPC 2.0 protocol, right? You need a solid understanding of the protocol. You need to also make sure that the authorization authentication is baked into it so that we make it production ready. And then and things like observability, like it's a very, very critical aspect, right? You want to make sure that what's coming in, what's going out of your MCP server, you want to do an audit trail, you want to understand what's going on in my MCP server, make sure that only authorized clients are connecting to my MCP server. So all of those things takes a lot of time of a developer, although you have vibe coding, right? And that's why we built the AgentCore Gateway, which is completely serverless, fully managed service. Number one, it gives you one-click transformation. Like I would say MCPifying your APIs, for example. Like, so all it takes is, if you want to convert an API that you have in your enterprise in open API format or Swagger format, like we want to give an experience where you can say, like, here's my open API format. Just MCPify for me. I'm not in the business of like writing an MCP server and hosting in a compute environment and having an auto scaling and all that stuff. Like, we want to do that undifferentiated heavy lifting for you. And you focus on the business value that you want to build out of that agentic application, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I love that. Like you can, with Gateway, you can write a Lambda function and then it just becomes MCP through this AgentCore Gateway. In that Lambda function, you can do all kinds of crazy things, whatever things you would have otherwise done in your MCP server. You just don't have to worry about integrating with a 6.18 version of the specification and then maintaining parity when the 9 whatever version comes around. So I think you're just getting, and Dowell talked about logging and security and all this stuff you're just getting out of the box. That's pretty amazing. So I think that's a tremendously powerful vision. Even on the side, I've been vibe coding over AgentCore Gateway and deploying it just Gateway plus Lambda, and I think it's a super powerful pattern. And I even saw somebody, they deployed a Gateway over their SageMaker model, so they had a tool that was calling their traditional ML model. I thought that was like a super cool little thing. So
I know, I work for with a lot of our financial services customers, and whenever MCP came out, they were all really excited. But this basically is the first thing that they were asking. It's like, okay, this is cool, and it's great to have a POC where we can kind of have all of these great MCP servers available. But how do I make this available to my enterprise? Very quickly, we started getting into like, oh yeah, you need to run an auth service on every MCP server, so that way you can. And at that point, they were like, hey, I think maybe it's a little too early. And so something like this really, I think, meets the mark for customers like that who need governance, who need centralized control in order to safely roll things out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then when we're talking about like scale, right? Like it's not about few tools, right? We're talking about like hundreds of tools being unified in one gateway and being offered as a centralized shared services to their internal teams. Like, hey, folks, like there are multiple organizations within a company, and everybody wants to develop agentic application. And the way how they think is like, all right, like let's unify all of those tools and offer in an MCP protocol using using AgentCore Gateway, and that gateway unifies all of those tools and offers as a single unified, secure, single point access where these organizations can have governance in place, decide who has access to which tool using the OAuth protocol. And then when we're talking about hundreds of tools, there's a risk where the agents, if agents get access to hundreds of tools, like there's a risk of hallucinations, there's a risk of performance degradation. And so we basically came up with a tool search, like a semantic discovery in the gateway, like where customers can like, you know what, I'm not going to use all hundreds or thousands of tools in the gateway. I just need some specific subset of these tools which is relevant for the user query. And I want to scale using semantic search. I don't want to go through these hundreds of tools. And when you talk about the context bloat, right? Like more you add the context into your agentic application, more you add up those number of tools and create that context bloat, it's gonna lead into hallucinations, and it's gonna also lead to reduced performance. So this semantic search capability that we offer as part of the gateway is immensely useful in reducing the context size, improving the performance, and scale.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about that feature. The last product I worked on for AWS, I built Bedrock knowledge bases. So RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, is like near and dear to my heart. And this tool search thing, I think is, I haven't seen a lot of products in the market doing this. And I think it's a total game changer. I actually believe that eventually nobody will do list tools, because I, as an organization, will have so many tools. My agent will have access to so many tools that I'll always want to search to find the 10 or 20 that are most relevant. And when you think about it, like when I'm doing tasks on my computer myself, right, as a human agent, I never like go off and list every application and just browse, right? I'm always looking for something specific. And I think that's really what we're doing with tool search, is like looking for the specific thing I need to do a task.
Cool. And talking about the authorization, it's extremely important. Job zero must have security baked in for production grade applications. And that's why MCP has this OAuth based specification for securing incoming calls. Gateway has inbound and outbound authorization built in. You're not here to build like, let me cache the tokens, let me reach out to the authorization server or OAuth compatible IDP and validate my incoming access token. Like it takes a lot of vibe coding and then lots of maintenance to develop like inbound authorizer and outbound authorization for your incoming calls and outgoing calls to the APIs. So
can't vibe code that, actually. Still too new to vibe code. Turns out anything released in the last 6 months, hard to vibe code. You have to actually know what you're doing.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
not only can you not
like
vibe code that, but your security counterpart is going to be very frustrated if you
That's
if
right.
you vibe code that. And that secure credential exchange is like no joke technology. It's a complicated thing to build, and
Totally.
I would never want to build that from scratch per application. So
and the tool search component you were talking about earlier, when we started, I saw a lot of customers when MCP got really popular have their light bulb moments where they were like, oh, I'm going to have an MCP server for everything in my enterprise, which working with the enterprise, that's hundreds, sometimes thousands, tens of thousands of endpoints. And then in the same conversation, we were like, yeah, right now it's about a 50 server maximum for a scalable MCP application. That was, I believe, the guidance from Anthropic, just in the context of like prompt driven MCP management. And so hard to like, you can't overstate what Nick was pointing out there of the ability to like semantically search tools, really simplifying and also expanding what like a model that's functioning as like an orchestrator is capable of. And by the way, we got a few questions in the chat that I think Nick would be a perfect guy to answer a few of them. First, I'll take the first question. Is this going to be recorded? Absolutely. If you're watching it now, you can find this recording on YouTube later. But somebody asked a question. I think their question is this seems similar to some options out there with A2A, and I think they're asking, does it support MCP and A2A? I don't know the answer about A2A, but I bet Nick, I bet you at least have some comments on A2A since you're on the steering committee.
Right. Yeah. So today we don't support A2A. We're hyper focused at the current moment on MCP. But definitely as AWS more broadly, we're committed to supporting both protocols. And in general, we want to try to support the community where they are, right, on the protocols that they are on. And you may have seen, we put out a few blog posts talking about how we've integrated MCP and A2A in products like Strands, for example. So those are worth checking out if you haven't already. But yeah, today it's focused on MCP.
All right. And Dewalt, I want you to finish, but I got another red hot question here that's one of my favorite questions when customers ask, hey, can I use this with like other inference? Like, will I be forced to use only Bedrock models if I go down this path?
That's a great question. Love that question. No, you're not logged into Bedrock models. Yes, you're not logged into Bedrock models. You are free to use any models, open source, closed sourced, VLLM, hosted LLMs. You can use your LLMs wherever they sit using this AgentCore. In fact, it's not just about AgentCore Gateway. It's like that's our vision and mission, and that's the founding principle of how we evolve this entire AgentCore ecosystem of 7 primitives and more to come. Nick?
I just want to add one more thing. It's not just about LLMs. So AgentCore as a whole, we support any framework, right? So you can run any framework on AgentCore runtime and integrate any framework with AgentCore Gateway and the others. And the other thing is, if you look at AgentCore Gateway, it speaks MCP and OAuth, right? So you can actually talk to this thing from any agent running on any stack. It doesn't have to be even running on AWS. So this is like a brand new thing for AWS, and we're super committed to supporting customers where they are, wherever they're hosting their agents.
Yeah. Talk about composable systems, talk about building blocks, talk about decoupled systems. That's our vision. That's the founding principle of AgentCore. All right. Great discussion. Trevor, any other great questions before I move on?
No, please proceed. Proceed.
All right, cool. So just a broader context here. So you got your agent, be it LangChain, LangGraph, or whichever framework that you prefer, running on AgentCore runtime, which we talked earlier before, right? And this session is particularly focused on gateway. So now your agent running on AgentCore runtime or wherever, right? We talk about composable systems. So wherever needs access to the tools. So you unify those tools and offer this, host it using a single secure unified access point call as gateway, which is AgentCore Gateway in this diagram. And so the agents calling the tools using MCP, calling AgentCore Gateway, where your tools are there. Now, the authentication part of it, be it an inbound authorization, when a call comes into the gateway using invoke tool or list tools, you need to make sure that you are authorizing the access to these list tools or invoke tool calls. And that is basically offered using another primitive called AgentCore Identity that does lots of great stuff. Number one, it takes care of validating the incoming access token with whichever IDP systems you want to integrate. You can literally integrate with any of your IDP systems as long as they talk OAuth 2.0 protocol. Like you can bring Auth 0. You can integrate with Okta. You can work with Cognito. I'm going to show you Cognito integration in this demo as well. And then the outbound authorization, like before calling an API or an AWS Lambda function to satisfy your invoke tool call, you need to authorize the outbound API calls. If it's an open API call, then you would need to configure that outbound authorizer as well. Like what is the API key you want to use before calling the API, or what is the OAuth access token that you want to send while invoking the outbound API. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So just to double click on that, right? Like said another way, you are going to call a bunch of APIs. Those APIs may take a credential that is different from the one you use internally in your business. For example, if I want to call Slack API, right, I may need an API key for Slack. So now we are actually managing that exchange so that we ensure that only certain callers get access to that specific API key, and specifically the Slack calls use the specific Slack API key. So we're managing all that. And like Dewalt is saying, caching access tokens so that you don't have auth fatigue and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff going on under the hood with that feature.
Yep. I'm not able to move my slide to the next one. I don't know what's going on, Trevor. There you go. Oh,
okay.
Something happened.
It looks like it's bugging out, but it's kind of working here. What slide do you need to be on? I might be able to get you there.
Oh yeah, I need to be on the last slide before I go to the demo because I want to show the demo. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Awesome.
There you go. All right. So before I hop into the demo, I'm very eager to show you code. So before I go show you the code, here's what we're going to develop. We are going to stand up a gateway, MCP gateway, with a bunch of tools. Those tools are MCP-fied from an existing open API, right? So we kind of have a concept of logical targets in the gateway. A target is a logical grouping of the API that you want to MCP-fy, or a target could be an AWS Lambda that you want to MCP-fy, or it could be a SMIDI target, which is a SMIDI format, JSON RPC format. I believe it's a JSON RPC format. No, JSON RPC, yes. So similar to the JSON, that we have a proprietary format called a SMIDI target, which you want to MCP-fy. And there's zero code that you're writing, by the way. But you just give us the Open API spec, either upload on S3 or you just specify inline the payload while you're creating the target, and off you go. Like we'll convert that into the MCP tool, and we'll do the conversion from the MCP's JSON RPC format to the respective targets Open API schema. We do the conversion of the schema. We unify all of these APIs into logical targets. And then we basically take care of sending the right credentials based on the based on the resource credential provider that you configure per target. So there's a concept of target. Each target might have multiple APIs. You can have multiple targets defined in the gateway. Right? So what we're going to show is, I'm going to show you how to create a gateway, number one, and then we are going to add targets. I'm going to start with adding a target like MCP-fying your AWS Lambda function, and then we're going to evolve that and add a target for Open API. And then if time permits, like we'll do a SMIDI demo as well quickly. And then I'm going to show you like how to list the tools and invoke the tools using the gateway. And I'll show the demonstration from the MCP inspector. That's one of the open source tools that folks use widely. Yeah, sounds good.
That sounds lovely. I think the folks in the chat would love to see a demo. They would absolutely love it. Chat always loves a demo, and I like a demo myself. So just let us know when you're ready, and we'll let you kick us off there.
Yeah. So if you can just share the screen. Yeah.
Cool. I'll pop it up right here. Here we go.
Alrighty. Okay. Are you able to see my notebook screen?
We are able to see it. Maybe is it possible for you to like zoom in just a little bit? Oh, actually, keep it where it was. I think it's probably better for us to see everything. Cool. This is good.
Okay. All right. So hey, by the way, you can create the gateway using AWS CLI or Bodo 3 or just REST API, plain simple REST APIs. Or you can create gateways using a very easy, simple way of getting started with gateway using Starter Toolkit. We call it as Bedrock AgentCore Starter Toolkit. I just want to paste that link here. Like, where's that link? Here's the link. Like AgentCore Starter Toolkit. This is a quick start tutorial. But basically, I'm following that. So you basically install.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely share that in the chat. In fact, it answers it reminds me of a question somebody was asking earlier. Was basically like, do they need to invoke AgentCore with a specific SDK? Which, as I understand, I think it uses the MCP protocol on the front end, but I could be wrong on that. So help me clarify my understanding of how
You're-
you connect
you're-
to the gateway.
Yeah, you're right. So let me just distinguish between two things. One is a control plane API, which is creating a gateway, adding a target, configuring the gateway with semantic search. All of those are called as control plane operations, which you need to do it either through AWS CLI or Starter Toolkit or Bodo 3 or REST API calls, right? But when it comes to data plane calls like, hey, I want to list the tools, I want to invoke the tool, MCP tool. Yes, you can do that with any MCP compliant client, any MCP compliant SDK. You can do it from any of the IDPs that are compliant with MCP clients. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah, basically you have to set it up with the AWS APIs, but then once it's set up, like all the interactions are just MCP. The other one, by the way, is console. So you can even do, there's like a user interface where you can go click, click, click and set up a gateway. And one of the great things that I love about the console is it also creates the Cognito authorizer for you. So if you're, just hacking around and just want to get something running right away, you can just do it in like 3 clicks on the console.
Well, you have a satisfied customer. That is exactly what they wanted to know about the data plane and the control plane. So thanks for clarifying that part of the architecture.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you the console experience as well. So, all right. So let's get started. So I'm going to show you how to create a gateway, add a target, and that too using a very simple Starter Toolkit SDK. The great part of the Starter Toolkit kit is it gives you high-level APIs, easy for you to spin up a gateway and configure an inbound authorizer. Here in this case, I'm going to use Amazon Cognito. There's generally a lot of steps involved, like creating a domain, creating a user pool, configuring the Cognito. There's a lot of there's an IAM role that you need to create to make sure that the policies are right. There are lots of complex operations involved that is simplified by using Starter Toolkit. So use Starter Toolkit, please, if you are starting for the first time. So you import the Starter Toolkit gateway client here, and then you basically configure the region for the gateway client here, right? Let me just zoom in here a little bit. And then you can set the client logging level to whatever logging level. Here I've set it to debug so that I can understand what's going on when I create a gateway client. And then here's a very important helper function, creating an Amazon Cognito authorizer for inbound authorization. Here's a great helper function that creates the Cognito user pool. It's very easy. You don't need to deal with any of the complexities. And then once you create that inbound Cognito as an inbound authorizer, time to create a gateway. Create MCP gateway with authorizer configuration that is pointing to Amazon Cognito, right? And then the response of create MCP gateway is a unique gateway URI or unique gateway endpoint that you can use to call invoke tools, list tools with any of the clients, MCP compliant clients, right? And then let's go further. And then I'm adding a new AWS Lambda target. So basically, I'm MCP-fying the AWS Lambda function by saying, all right, create gateway target with Lambda target type. Here in this case, you have not specified a Lambda ARN. You haven't specified anything as to which AWS function you are really MCP-fying, because the helper function creates a default Lambda function for you to test real quick. You can also customize the Lambda. I'll show you how. But for a moment, let's just understand what is it doing behind the scenes, right? This is what I call it as easy auth setup, right? So when you do that, bunch of things are done here. So you see the user pool is created in Cognito, and you can also go into the console and check yes, this is the pool that is actually created in Cognito. It creates a domain, Cognito domain, and then it basically, and when you create a domain and when you create a user pool, it gives you a client ID to configure in gateway for inbound authorization configuration. And then it creates an IAM role. And then here is the actual gateway parameters that was finally sent to the control plane API for creating the gateway, right? So here's the protocol type. Here's an MCP. Here are the allowed client IDs. Here in this case, it's a Cognito client ID that you just created. And hey, by the way, there's a discovery URL also that you get out of when you create a Cognito pool, right? Which is an IDP, OpenID configuration that you give to the gateway so that the gateway knows how to authorize the calls, incoming calls, when somebody calls invoke tools or list tools. So let's just execute that. All right, so let's execute that. So it's creating all of that cool stuff. User pool creation. It's waiting for the DNS propagation. Cool. And then, by the way, when we create the Cognito pool, right, if you pull up that OpenID configuration discovery URL, you will see a lot of metadata information about authorization endpoint, the token endpoint, the issuer configuration, all of that stuff. Can pretty print it also for you to see it better, right? Okay, and then it's still waiting for the DNS propagation. Okay.
This is like a 1 minute sleep we do just for the DNS propagation. But yeah, I think, I was pretty impressed with this starter toolkit. I think it's super nice to be able to just set this up in a few lines and try something, and then plugging it into Inspector, which I think you're about to do, is kind of a light bulb moment that it just works with the off-the-shelf MCP stuff.
Yeah, so it just worked. So we got the unique gateway URL created. Yes, this is the unique URI, which I'm going to take this URI and I have the MCP inspector running here. So I'm going to just replace this URL with this URL that I just created. Yes. And then, oh, by the way, it created a Lambda target with a pre-built Lambda that does get weather for location and get time for a time zone. So we are basically exposing two tools, which we got it from the AWS Lambda MCP-fied, and it added that as a target. So we should have two tools in this gateway now, right? So you just did this, and you have the entire MCP gateway standing up. Yeah. All right, let's test it out now. So what you need is the gateway URL, which I already have it here. But what you don't have is the authentication information, or like authorization information. In this case, the authorization bearer token. We don't have it yet. So let's get that. So what I'm going to do is I have this helper function written, which gets the access token from Cognito, right? And so I'm just going to execute that, and it's going to spit out a JWT token for me to test it out. Do not share JWT tokens, please. This is just demo. You're not supposed to share. You're not supposed to share JWT tokens.
I love the passion in this disclaimer. Like, hey, if you weren't listening, please do not share your JWT. Yes. Don't
All
share.
right. So what I'm going to do
it's for a demo.
Yeah, this is for demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, send this JWT token in the authorization bearer token. And here's my authorization bearer token. I just copy paste it and just reconnect, right? And then I'm just going to clear, and I'm going to list the tools. And ooh, look at that. We have get time, get weather already listed as list tools. So what I did actually was I cleared the history, and I clicked on list tools. The list tool basically is establishing a connection to AgentCore Gateway, and it is doing a handshake using the MCP protocol. It's actually doing initialize, as you can see here in the history. I don't know if you can see the history here. Here, so you see the initialize, and then it's when I click on list tools, it's actually hitting the list tools API here. And it's getting all these tools from the AgentCore Gateway.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't, there's somebody in the YouTube chat. Chat names are funny. I'll never know who they are, but I would love if they DM'd me on LinkedIn because they're asking really smart questions. Apparently, they've used the MCP inspector utility before, and I think they're basically asking like, he thinks we're calling each MCP server, but actually, what's happening with this is you're just pointing this at the gateway URL, which is an MCP server. And so basically any MCP client can connect into MCP gateway as long as it speaks the protocol and obviously has the authorization header.
That's right. And in fact, these tools are hosted on Lambda, right? So they're not even, they're on Lambda. You could have tools on Fargate, on EKS, who knows where. And the other point in that question I saw that's important is this inspector is not something we developed or AWS developed. This is something that the MCP has built, and we're just demonstrating that Gateway speaks MCP. So Gateway can just integrate right here.
Exactly. And if you want to see the Lambda here, I am going to, there are a bunch of Lambdas that I've created, by the way. Okay, here's the...
It's like when I open my S3 console and it's like, oh gosh, I'm never going to find that.
Exactly.
That old bucket.
There you go. Yeah. So look at that. This is the Lambda that is getting invoked. Get weather, get time. You see that? Cool. Like you see the power of the gateway. Like you didn't need to core the MCP protocol. You didn't convert those schema into the respective AWS Lambda schema. Like all of this is baked in. All of the heavy lifting is done by us. You just give us the Lambda that you want to MCPify. Give us the schema of your Lambda, and we'll do the schema conversion. Right.
And is that by the way a native just like direct plumbing to Lambda that we have where we like or is there some middle step there that's happening where we like convert it into an MCP?
No, exactly. Direct plumbing to Lambda.
Cool.
So yeah.
And
for the, like I mentioned, the Fargate and EKS one. So you write your tools over there. You give us that like specification, that open API spec that just says, here are the things that we want to tell the agent about, right? This tool has this description and these parameters, and that's all you need. And then you're off and running.
Interesting. So if I were to do that integration, would I wouldn't need to run like fast MCP on the container?
You wouldn't. And you wouldn't even have to deal with auth, right? Like you don't want to get into the nitty gritty of auth. You just use this semantic search. You don't even have to worry about it. It just comes for free. So
could we talk about auth a little bit? I think where you do that MCP, if you still have MCP inspector, well, if you could pull that up, I think I've got a question over this about auth, right? So in this case, I'm assuming you just got returned all of your tools, right? That you have on this gateway, but could you feasibly say like for Trevor, I only want him to have access to like, developer tools, and Nick, I want him to only have access to like data science tools. Is there some capability there in terms of like only returning certain tools?
Yeah, so that's a great question, by the way. I've literally gotten this question like almost every time. So first of all, I wanted to show you something because this is related to this question. Where is the allowed client? Yeah. So first, number one, there is an authorizer configuration while you create the gateway where you're allowing a specific application clients, whoever has access to the gateway. You can this is actually a list, right? So you can have like n number of applications who needs to access the gateway tools. You need to mention all of these individual client IDs here who should have access to the tools that are being served by that particular gateway instance. Now, to your question, if a user who already has access to gateway needs a fine-grained access permission to specific tools or not, does the gateway has that feature? Not yet. But what you can choose to do is to have multiple gateways aligned to a specific client application and restricting the number of tools or type of the tools that you're offering to that gateway, and configuring these allowed clients right there before the call comes in,
That makes sense. That sounds actually like a great project for an SA like me to build. But like we could have like 4 different gateways with different permissions or different sets of MCPs that they're supported. And I guess I should be like precise too, because I think you know, tool level granularity would be awesome one day. Even MCP level granularity, I think is quite quite interesting. So I'm glad to know we're thinking in that direction, and we're already devising like workarounds for customers that need to do it today is awesome.
Yeah, and I think, Trevor, this also hits on another amazing thing about Gateway, which is that it's serverless, right? So like typically when we think about MCP servers, you think about standing up infrastructure. And if I was creating, 10 different MCP servers, I'm spinning up 10 different servers. These gateways are totally serverless. So you don't pay to have, you could have 1 million gateways and you wouldn't pay per gateway, you would pay per request. So that, unlocks a lot of interesting patterns in terms of tenancy. And it's not to say that we'll never do fine-grained access control. I think that's a really important feature. But definitely there's some really interesting things you can build off that serverless.
Assumedly, I could have like, if I'm just thinking on the Lambda integration, if I have a Lambda MCP, assumedly I could have 2 gateways pointing towards the same Lambda, right? So really the gateway itself just becomes the auth layer.
And not only that,
in a serverless model, it makes a lot of sense.
Right. And not only that, you could have 2 different specs, right? You could say, even though I'm pointing to the same Lambda, on gateway
different
1,
open API spec for
tool
that
1 and 2. And on gateway 2, I only want to expose tool 1, even though they both point to the same Lambda. So
I like this. I like this. This is good.
Let's extend it this more. So now you want to bring your own Lambda. You want to customize the Lambda. Yeah. So how do you do that? So here's an API. As part of the starter toolkit, create MCP gateway target. Yeah, and you're adding a target. Target type is Lambda, right? And then now you want to select, oh, I have already authored a Lambda function. I just want you to use that. Yes, we can use that. So what you can do is give us a JSON, and as part of that JSON configuration, you give us the R number of the Lambda function that you want to MCPify them and insert it here. I haven't inserted here, but just this is a placeholder, by the way. And then very important aspect is give us the tool schema, which you, Nick, were telling, right? You were telling previously, right? You could definitely use this, a different schema for different gateways, although you're using the same underlying AWS Lambda function. Here in this case, I have defined the tool schema to expose 2 tools, get weather and get time. But here's how you do it. And then here's the target payload, meaning the target configuration payload. And off you go. It will add your own custom AWS Lambda function and MCPify that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. So a lot of things that we did for AWS Lambda function. Now let's move on and show you how to integrate with strands. So let's say you have a strands agent. And then same thing, like similar code exists for LangChain agent or LangGraph, where you need to create a streamable HTTP client. Here is a very important code. Streamable HTTP client transport. The URL is going to point to gateway URL, AgentCore gateway URL. Yes, and then the headers you're going to send as part of the authorization header the access token with whichever IDP you want to work with. It could, in this case, it's Cognito, but it could be very well Auth0 or Okta or whatever, whichever IDP is compliant with OAuth. Right, and then once you have this streamable HTTP connection, you just create an MCP client with that transport and use, as usual, configure your agent with the tools and the LLM. Here in this case, I'm using Bedrock model, by the way. And then here's the main core, like agent. You're creating an agent object with model and the tools, and this tools is pointing to AgentCore gateway. Yeah, this tools are pointing to gateway, right? And then I'm just invoking the run gateway, which is actually executing the gateway, executing the agent, and I'm asking the questions literally like get me the time for PST time zone, for example, here in this case, right? It's thinking it finds out the right tool based on the list tools, and then it's like, yes, let me invoke the tool. Everything is seamless. Right? As good as you're working with an MCP compliant, yet another MCP compliant MCP server. Yeah, you can use it from Claude Code. You can use it from the IDEs. You just need to configure the URL, MCP URL, which is AgentCore Gateway, and the authorization bearer token. Right?
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense.
All right. Let's move on and add more targets. Targets. Yes. So let's move on to the adding more targets, which is now I'm going to just show you like quick like how to do the same stuff with Bodo 3. So here's the Bodo 3. You can also do it Bodo 3 using Create Gateway API. And so just executing that. Oh, yeah, sure. I need to say exit. Bye. Right, I'm just exiting that. All right. And here is the Bodo 3 client. Oh, am I? Do I not?
Okay. Quit, I think is the, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Okay, there you go. All right. And then you have, you create an, I got an exception. Oh my God. All right, let's troubleshoot. It says it already exists. Yes, I'm going to change the name. This is something cool about Show and Tell, right? It might fail, isn't it? I'm going to rename that, the name of the gateway, right? Oh, it succeeds now. I have another gateway created with this URL, right? And I'm going to bring my own MCP Lambda target. In this case, get order tool and update order tool. I give the schema here and add it as part of the gateway. And it's successful. Let's test it out if it's successful. Do we see the get order and update order or not? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the gateway URL, replace it here, and reconnect, clear, and see the list tools. Yes, we see the get order tool. 1, 2, 3, run the tool, make sure it's successful, right? This is successful.
Well, and you just created you basically created a new gateway and new configs just now in that little code snippet, right?
Yes,
right
little code. Yes,
that happened. That was super fast. That was super fast. So
Sorry
folks, you got no excuse not to play around with and experiment with AgentCore Gateway a little bit, because we've already seen in less than an hour you can have multiple AgentCore gateways spun up. You can test them out. I hadn't seen MCP Inspector before, but I'm going to play with that because it seems easier than trying to write my local MCP file every time I'm looking to update a new MCP server. But
yeah,
it's been awesome having you guys on. We're gonna open it up to the chat to let any final questions come in for the next few minutes. We've already got a few that have been floating in, but I just can't say thanks enough for sharing your expertise. And I personally learned a lot. In fact, I'm going to go to a customer workshop tomorrow, and when they ask the question, how do I secure applications behind gateway for different teams, I'm going to have the answer now, thanks to you two. So I appreciate the guidance there. One question, and I don't know if y'all have a perspective on this, but it's an interesting one, is around security. I think I think about this in the context of MCP, but also, of course, MCP is just a means to an ends of injecting context into a prompt that's going to go into a model. So, of course, I know we have a lot of different thoughts of how to secure that, but do we recommend any sort of layer in between an MCP server and a client, or do we see most customers just using a typical guardrail to kind of secure the agent that they've built on top of MCPs?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. There are lots of things that comes to my mind when it comes to the securing the agentic applications. It's not only about calling the tool securely. It's also how the agent is orchestrating the flows, monitoring each and every step within the orchestration, which parameters are being used to invoke the tool, for example. what is the prompt, setting up the guardrails before even it hits the agent.
Yeah. In fact, you know what, you're making me think that maybe equally as important as security is just observability, just being able to see what's happening inside the agent. Because in the world of generative AI, you can, I mean, at least if you're using FMs, you can't ever really guarantee 100% accuracy, right? So to be able to at least see what's going right and what's going wrong when it does feels feels very fundamental for people to be thinking about.
Yeah. I just want to show like a quick thing for the Open API as well, if there's time, Trevor.
We got like a couple more minutes. If it's quick, I can let you have it.
Let's do it. Let's test it out here. So, all right. So we're going to add an Open API and convert it into MCP tool. Here I'm using NASA's Mars's Get Weather API, which is publicly available Open API, by the way. Go to NASA's API, Open API, to get the weather for Mars, and you will get a sample API key here, which is demo underscore key. So the first thing you need is what do you need to send that Open API in terms of credentials? You could send it an API key, or you could also ask Gateway to send an access token using OAuth, as you can see here in this table. Right here, I'm going to use NASA. I'm going to call NASA's API using API key. Here, the API key is demo underscore key. By creating an API credentials key provider, and this will securely store your API key in Secrets Manager in your account, basically. And you see a bunch of error messages here. Ignore that because I did not ensure that it has a unique name. All right, so let's run this. All right, so it creates the credential provider with an API key for calling NASA's API. All right, now the second step you need is, where is my Open API spec? Where is it, right? So you get that Open API spec either in YAML format or JSON format, and upload it in S3, and then say, hey, Gateway target, point that to this schema so that Gateway knows how to convert the incoming MCP invoke tool request into the respective Open API's schema and call the API, here in this case, get weather for Mars, right? And then the next step is creating the Gateway target and say, hey, yes, this is the NASA's Open API target with the Open API spec uploaded in S3 URI. Here's the target configuration for that. And here is the API key credential provider. I want Gateway to use the specific API key, which I've configured in the API credentials provider. And Gateway will use that credentials to call the NASA's Open API, right? So I'm just going to call this and see if it succeeds. Yes, it succeeded. Let's see if you see that in the MCP inspector. So I'm going to clear the cache. I'm going to call the list tools again. Where is the get Mars weather? Here is the get Mars weather. Get insight weather. All right, 1.0. And the feed type is JSON. They expect us to send this thing. Oh, it failed out. Oh my gosh. All right.
I think it has to be lowercase, maybe.
Oh, it's a JSON. Good catch. Nick, you are a savior.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
Wow. I was like, I saw the error and I was like, all right, we got 2 minutes left. I don't know if we got time to troubleshoot this one, but we got Nick. We're good. We're good.
So you see here all of that great stuff. Now, here is the whole process. You never had to code this. You never had to convert the schema, right? Yeah. Cool.
Very right. Cool. We didn't get to search tool and a few things, but I think we got the gist, and obviously we'll share offline. And yeah, thank you all so much. This was great.
Yeah, of course. Thank you both for making the time. I've been sharing links to the repo in the comments so folks can go play with it themselves. So again, appreciate you guys coming on. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Maybe after reInvent, whenever the next wave of AgentCore Gateway features come out. But,
I need more. I need another session. I hope folks in the audience, please say +1. I need this folks to come back.
I think we can make it happen. It was a great session. Thanks everybody so much for coming along, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.